the death of the country's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Khamenei's daughter, grandchild and 2 other family members were also killed in the strikes. Earlier, Iran launched missiles and drones towards Israel and US military bases in the region in response to earlier attacks. The strikes mark a significant escalation in tensions between Iran, the United States and Israel, and come amid ongoing discussions over Iran's nuclear program.
Born into a clerical family, Ali Khamenei studied at the religious seminary in Qom under the most prominent Shia scholars of the day, including Ruhollah Khomeini, who would later be the leader of the Iranian Revolution. Influenced by Khomeini's revolutionary ideas, Khamenei actively participated in anti-monarchy protests starting from 1963. He became a leading figure in establishing a new Iran after the monarchy was deposed in 1979. When the Iran-Iraq War broke out in 1980, the young Islamic Republic was struggling to establish itself both domestically and internationally. In 1981, Khamenei, a fiery orator in support of Khomeini, won the presidency. Throughout the 8-year war with Iraq, he frequently visited the front lines, earning the loyalty of the Revolutionary Guards. Iran was internationally isolated and economically devastated when Ayatollah Khomeini died in 1989. Hashemi Rafsanjani, one of the Islamic Republic's founding fathers, urged the assembly of experts to appoint Khamenei as the new supreme leader.
I told Mr. Hashemi Rafsanjani that I would not accept this. I believe I do not deserve this position. Perhaps you and I know this. This would be symbolic leadership, not real leadership.
But his leadership has been anything but symbolic. In the early 1990s, Khamenei focused on reviving Iran's economy. Iran began to reclaim a broader regional role after American military intervention in Iraq in 1991 that significantly weakened Iran's archenemy, Iraq's President Saddam Hussein.
For more than 3 decades, one man has stood at the center of Iran's power structure, shaping its foreign policy, steering its nuclear strategy, defining its relationship with the United States, Israel, and the West, the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic. Now imagine for a moment the geopolitical earthquake that would follow if that pillar of authority suddenly disappeared. In the Middle East, power does not simply shift, it detonates. The supreme leader is not just a ceremonial head of state. In Iran's system, he is the ultimate authority over the military, the Revolutionary Guard, the judiciary, state broadcasting, and the country's long-term ideological direction. Presidents come and go, parliaments debate. But the supreme leader sits above it all, a stabilizing force to some, an immovable hardline architect to others. So what happens if that figure is suddenly gone? Markets would not wait for clarification. Oil prices would spike within hours. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow artery through which nearly a fifth of the world's oil flows, would become the focal point of global anxiety. Military analysts in Washington, Tel Aviv, Moscow, and Beijing would scramble to assess risk. Intelligence agencies would go into overdrive. Because in geopolitics, leadership transitions in volatile regions are rarely smooth. Iran's political structure includes the assembly of experts, the clerical body responsible for appointing a new supreme leader. But such a transition is not just procedural, it is deeply political. factions inside Iran's establishment, hardliners, pragmatists, Revolutionary Guard elites, all hold competing visions of the country's future. Would a successor double down on confrontation with the West? Would a new leadership open the door to negotiations? Or would internal instability create an unpredictable vacuum? The stakes extend far beyond Iran's borders. Israel would immediately reassess its security posture. The United States would move additional naval assets into the region as a precaution. Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates would tighten defense coordination. Proxy groups across Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen could react independently, escalating tensions even without direct orders from Tehran. And then there is the nuclear question. Iran's nuclear program has long been the center of global tension. Any uncertainty at the top could either accelerate enrichment activities as a show of strength or create an opening for renewed diplomacy. Both paths carry enormous consequences. History shows us that leadership changes in strategically critical nations rarely stay domestic stories. When the Soviet Union lost its longtime leader, global politics shifted. When authoritarian regimes in the Middle East experienced sudden transitions during the Arab Spring, entire regions destabilized. Power vacuums invite both opportunity and chaos. Iran is not an isolated state. It is a regional power with deep influence networks, military partnerships, and economic ties stretching across Asia, Europe, and Africa. China relies on Iranian oil. Russia coordinates with Iran in Syria. European governments have navigated complex nuclear diplomacy for years. A leadership transition at the very top would ripple through every one of those relationships. But perhaps the most unpredictable factor would be internal reaction. Iran's population is young. Many citizens have expressed frustration over economic conditions and political restrictions. Would uncertainty at the top trigger internal protests? Or would it consolidate national unity in the face of perceived external threats? The Revolutionary Guard, one of the most powerful institutions in the country, would play a decisive role. Its loyalty, posture, and strategic choices would shape the speed and direction of any transition. For global investors, for military planners, for energy markets, uncertainty is the most dangerous variable of all. Because uncertainty increases miscalculation. And miscalculation in the Middle East has historically led to rapid escalation. Imagine a scenario where regional rivals interpret internal Iranian changes as weakness. Imagine preemptive moves, counter-moves, cyber operations, naval maneuvers in contested waters. A single misread signal could cascade into something far larger. This is why analysts around the world constantly monitor Iran's leadership structure, health rumors, succession debates, and internal power dynamics, not because of speculation, but because the stability of a single office in Tehran is deeply intertwined with global stability. The world economy, energy supply chains, military alliances, and diplomatic negotiations are all connected to the continuity of power at the very top of Iran's system. And that is why even the possibility of a sudden change commands global attention. In this documentary analysis, we will break down how Iran's leadership succession process works, who the potential successors could be, how the Revolutionary Guard factors into power transitions, what it would mean for Israel, the United States, and Gulf nations, the potential impact on oil prices and global markets, and whether such a moment could reduce tensions or ignite something far more dangerous, because in geopolitics, individuals matter. Leadership matters, timing matters, and when power shifts at the center of a strategically critical nation, the entire world feels the tremor. Stay with us as we examine the structure behind the headlines and the global consequences that could follow any major leadership transition in Tehran. This is not just a domestic story. It is a potential turning point for the Middle East and possibly for the world.